February 19th, 1945, 6:47 a.m. The Pacific Ocean, 12 miles east of Iwo Jima. The water is wrong. That's the first thing that strikes you standing on the deck of the USS. Dual and attack transport ship carrying men to what will become the bloodiest battle in Marine Corps history. The ocean around you isn't blue. It's gray, gunmetal gray, the color of industrial death. And on the horizon, barely visible through the pre-dawn murk, is Iwo Jima itself, a volcanic rock jutting from the sea like a rotting tooth, crowned by Mount Suribachi, dormant, waiting. Private Jacklyn Harrell Lucas stands somewhere in the mass of humanity packed onto this transport 17 years old. Though he's lied about his age so many times now that he sometimes forgets what the truth is. His hands are shaking, not from fear, from anticipation. He's been waiting for this moment since he was 14 years old and first lead to an enlistment officer at a recruiting station in Asheville, North Carolina. Now, finally, after months of deception, unauthorized absence, court-martial, and solitary confinement, he's here. He watches the water churn beneath the hull. Around him, thousands of other Marines men in olive-drab fatigues, faces painted with camouflage, each one carrying rifles in fear and the weight of letters from home that they might never see again. Some of them are seasoned. They've been to Saipan or Tarawa or Peleliu. They know what's coming. They know the sound a man makes when shrapnel tears through him. They know the smell of blood mixed with seawater and cordite. They know that many of them won't make it back to the transport ship at night. Maybe most of them won't. But Lucas doesn't know any of this yet. He's 19 days past his 17th birthday. He thinks about the letter he wrote to his girlfriend before leaving. Thought it was safe to mail. It wasn't. Military censors read it, discovered his age, and suddenly Lucas found himself in the brig, sentenced to 5 months of hard labor. 5 months of breaking rocks with a diet of bread and water. But here's the thing about Jacklyn Lucas, and this is the kind of thing that defines a man. That shapes what he'll become. He never stopped wanting to fight. Even after the court-martial. Even after they demoted him. Even after they tried to keep him stateside on truck duty. So on January 10th, 1945, he did something that would have gotten most men shot. He walked out of camp with nothing but his boots and fatigues. Unauthorized absence. UA desertion, technically. He stowed aboard this very ship, the USS Doyle, because it was headed to the Pacific. Headed to combat. Headed to Iwo Jima. He turned himself in on February 8th, just one day before the Navy would have officially declared him a deserter. The ship was already underway, already committed to the voyage. There was nothing they could do but accept him aboard and reassign him. Demote him from private first class to private. Reassign him to the 1st Battalion, 26th Marine Regiment, 5th Marine Division, under Captain Robert Dunlap. And now, as the transport ship cuts through the gray-white water, and as the bombardment begins, the sound of naval guns firing on the island, a sound so massive that it seems to reorder your entire concept of what sound even is, Jacklyn Lucas is finally, unmistakably, undeniably going to war. The decision has been made. The die has been cast. In a few hours, he will touch down on a beach of black volcanic sand, and everything, absolutely everything about his life will change forever. The smell hits before the sight does. Diesel exhaust mixing with the acrid burn of cordite from the naval bombardment. But underneath it all the smell of eggs. The Navy's trying to give them a good breakfast, a real breakfast. Eggs, toast, coffee. The logic is simple. If this is your last meal, make it memorable. Jacklyn sits on a steel bench in the ship's mess with 200 other Marines, all of them elbow to elbow, all of them trying not to think about what they're eating. The eggs are overcooked, rubbery, swimming in grease that coats your mouth and makes you thirsty. The coffee tastes like burned metal. No one's complaining. No one's pushing food away. Because every Marine in this room knows the same basic truth. Your body is a machine, and machines need fuel. You eat because you don't know when you'll eat again. You drink because you don't know when the next opportunity will come. You do these things not with enthusiasm, but with the same mechanical precision you'll apply to loading a rifle magazine in a few hours. Next to Jacklyn sits Private Danny Thomas, assigned to his squad just 2 days ago. Danny's from Georgia. He's got the kind of drawl that makes everything he says sound slower than it is, and the kind of calmness that makes you wonder if he's stupid or wise. Jacklyn hasn't figured out which yet. You scared? Danny asks, not looking at Jacklyn, just asking it into his plate of eggs, like he's asking about the weather. Jacklyn considers the question. Is he scared? Of course he's scared. You'd have to be insane not to be scared. But scared isn't the right word, exactly. Scared is what you feel before an exam you didn't study for. This is different. This is something deeper. This is the kind of fear that goes beyond your nervous system and settles into your bones. No, Jacklyn lies, then immediately corrects himself, because he's learned that you have to be honest with the men in your squad. They have to know they can rely on you. Yeah, I'm scared. Danny nods. He takes another bite of eggs, swallows it like it personally wronged him. That's good, he says. Means you got sense. Marines who ain't scared are the ones who die first. Around them, other conversations are happening. Snippets, none of them lasting long. Some men are writing letters they won't get to send. Some are sleeping, their heads tilted back against the steel bulkhead, getting whatever rest they can before the beach. Some are checking their rifles, working the bolt, making sure the ammunition is positioned just right in their bandoliers. Some are saying prayers. Some are doing all of these things at once. An officer walks through the mess Lieutenant Morrison, who commands Jacklyn's platoon. He's maybe 30 years old, which makes him ancient in the eyes of the 17-year-old private. He's got that calm that officers are trained to project. A calm that's supposed to convince you that everything will be fine, that everything is under control, that the chain of command knows what it's doing. Gentlemen, he says, and his voice carries across the clanking of forks and the shuffle of boots on the metal deck. In 3 hours, we will be moving to the landing craft. In 4 hours, we will touch down on Iwo Jima. I want you to know that Division Intelligence has confirmed that the island is defended by approximately 20,000 enemy personnel. Many of them are positioned in tunnels and fortified positions. We will face significant resistance. Jacklyn feels something shift in his chest. 20,000. That number hangs in the air like smoke. The island he can see from the deck is roughly 5 miles long and 2.5 miles wide at its widest point. That's 12.5 square miles. They're trying to squeeze 20,000 armed, trained, willing to die Japanese soldiers into 12.5 square miles. And they're trying to assault that position with Marines packed so densely on these transport ships that you can barely move. However, Morrison continues, the naval bombardment has been intensive. We've been firing on that island for 3 days straight. Battleships, cruisers, destroyers, all of them hammering that rock. Intelligence believes that the defenses had been significantly degraded. Jacklyn looks around at the other faces. He can see who believes this and who doesn't. The older Marines, the ones who've been to other Pacific islands, they're not buying it. They know how this works. They know that Japanese soldiers, trained from childhood to die for the Emperor, don't surrender. They don't break. They don't demoralize. They dig deeper, and they wait for you to come to them. But Jacklyn can't read his own face, and he wonders what the others see when they look at him. Does he look scared? Confident? Stupid? All three? You will maintain unit cohesion at all times, Morrison says. You will follow orders without question. You will look out for the man next to you, because that man is your life, and you are his. Is that clear? Ura, comes the response. It's not a shout exactly. It's more like a collective acknowledgement. These men have been trained to respond to that command. And they respond to it now, even though they're sitting in a mess hall 6,000 miles from home, about to move into what might be a coffin. Morrison leaves. The conversations resume, but they're quieter now. The weight of that 20,000 has settled on everyone in this room. Jacklyn pushes the rest of his eggs away. His stomach has stopped working. It's not going to cooperate with food anymore. Danny notices. You gonna eat that? Jacklyn shakes his head. Danny reaches over and steals the plate without asking permission. That's how you know you're going to get along with someone in a Marine squad when they're comfortable enough around you to steal your breakfast without a word. My daddy was in France during the last war, Danny says, working through Jacklyn's eggs like they owe him money. World War I. He never talked about it much. But one time, maybe 3 years ago, he was in the barn. We had a farm, tobacco and corn, and he heard a loud noise. Truck backfiring, probably, but he didn't think about that. He just hit the ground, threw himself in the dirt like he was back in the trenches. My mama found him there, covered in mud, shaking. He was too embarrassed to talk about it. But I asked him later, when it was just us, and he told me something I'll never forget. Jacklyn's listening now. Something about the way Danny's telling this story, slow, deliberate, makes Jacklyn think it matters. He told me that the war doesn't really end when you come home. It ends inside you, and it ends in its own time, and there's nothing you can do to speed it up. He told me that's why he wanted me to become a Marine instead of staying on the farm. He said, if you're going to carry this thing with you for the rest of your life, you might as well earn it doing something that means something. Danny finishes the eggs, pushes the plate away. So I figure, he says, whatever happens on this island, at least I'm going to know it mattered. In 5 hours, Jacklyn Lucas will learn that Danny Thomas is wrong about something. The war doesn't end inside you when you come home. It never ends. But standing in that mess hall, listening to Danny talk about his father, Jacklyn doesn't know that yet. He thinks he can do this thing. He thinks he can go onto that beach and survive and come home and pick up his life where he left it off. He's 17. He still believes in the possibility of going back to the way things were. The call comes at 8:47 a.m. Move to your boat stations. The transport ship becomes controlled chaos. Not panic Marines don't panic, or if they do, they hide it so completely that panic becomes invisible, but motion. Organized, practiced motion. Men checking rifles one final time. Men checking ammunition. Men checking the letters in their pockets that will be collected and held until the assault is over. Men putting on their steel helmets. Men adjusting their suspenders and their web gear and their gas masks and all the other equipment. That's going to weigh 40 pounds on their bodies in the heat of a Pacific island. Jacklyn moves through this choreography with the other Marines. He's done this before, during training at Camp Lejeune. He knows the steps. He knows where to go. He knows that a Marine is supposed to move with purpose, with confidence, with the understanding that hesitation gets people killed. So he moves. And as he moves, he doesn't let himself think about whether he's going to come back down this same companionway tonight, or whether someone else will be collecting his gear in a box to send home to his mother in North Carolina. The landing craft are lowered into the water. They're called Higgins Boats LCVP, landing craft, vehicle, and personnel. They're small. They're made of plywood and aluminum, and they're designed to get Marines from the transport ship to the beach. They're not designed to be particularly safe. They're designed to be effective. Jacklyn and his squad 12 men, including the squad leader, Sergeant Collins, file into one of these boats. The smell is immediate. Salt water, diesel fuel, vomit. Apparently someone's already gotten sick, and fear. Fear has a smell, you know. Nobody ever talks about it, but it does. It smells like sweat and acid. And the specific kind of desperation that comes from knowing you're committed to something you might not survive. The boat is crammed. There's barely room to stand. Jacklyn's squeezed between Danny Thomas on one side and a Marine he doesn't know on the other. Everyone's holding on to their rifles, holding on to the sides of the boat, trying to find some way to brace themselves for the ride to shore. The boat starts to move. The engines roar to life. The bow lifts and falls with the waves. And then, for the first time, Jacklyn Lucas hears the sound of war. It's not the gunfire, not yet. It's the sound of the island itself. Mount Suribachi is less than 2 miles away now, and the naval bombardment hasn't stopped. For 3 days, the Navy has been pounding this island with naval gunfire 5-inch shells from destroyers, 14-inch shells from battleships, everything they've got. The sound is indescribable. It's louder than any sound Jacklyn has ever heard. It's louder than thunder. It's louder than you think sound can be. It's the sound of the earth breaking. It's the sound of stone being pulverized. It's the sound of something that registers not just in your ears, but in your chest, in your bones, in your teeth. The Marines and the landing craft don't talk. They can't. Not over that sound. So they sit in silence, which is somehow worse than talking would be. Silence lets you think. Silence lets you imagine. The beach is getting closer. 500 yards. 400. 300. And Jacklyn Lucas, 17 years old, 5'7", 130 pounds soaking wet, is about to run into the worst day of his life. And he doesn't know it yet. He thinks he's ready. He thinks he's trained enough, prepared enough, tough enough. He's about to discover what he's actually made of.
9:02 a.m., February 19th, 1945, Iwo Jima landing beach. The ramp drops. That's the moment everything becomes real. It's not the sound of the engines, not the sight of the island getting closer. It's not even the artillery roaring overhead like angry gods. It's the physical sensation of that ramp falling, of the bow of the Higgins boat dropping open like a mouth, and suddenly there's nothing between you and the island except 50 yards of black sand and the open sky. Sergeant Collins is the first one out. That's what sergeants do, they lead. His boots hit the sand and he's already moving. Already shouting commands that no one can hear over the noise, but they don't need to hear him. They know what to do. They know the drill. You get off the boat, you move forward, you find cover. You don't stop moving, because the moment you stop moving, you die. Jacklyn goes third. Right behind Danny Thomas, who's moving like a man possessed, his rifle held high, his eyes already scanning the beach for danger. The black sand is strange volcanic, fine as talcum powder, and it pulls at your boots with every step. It's like running through flour. It's like the island itself is trying to slow you down. The sound when you hit the beach is different. The roar of the naval bombardment changes. It's the engines of the landing craft behind you are muted. But now you can hear something new, something that will define the next 36 days on this island. You can hear the whistle of incoming shells. You can hear the crack of artillery fire. You can hear, unmistakably, and with absolute certainty, the sound of Japanese artillery responding to the American bombardment. They're not dead. The 20,000 that intelligence warned about, they're not lying in pieces on the beach. They're dug in. They're in tunnels. They're in fortified positions carved into the volcanic rock. And they've been waiting for this moment for months. The bombardment hasn't degraded them. It's only made them angrier. Jacklyn runs. His boots sink into the black sand with every step. The beach is chaos, not panic, but chaos. There are hundreds of Marines on this beach now. Hundreds more coming in successive waves. Officers shouting orders. Sergeants grabbing Marines and directing them toward the interior. Medical personnel already treating the first wounded. And the wounded are everywhere. A Marine goes down 30 feet from the waterline. Jacklyn doesn't see what got him. A bullet probably, or shrapnel. There's so much shrapnel in the air that you stop thinking of it as individual pieces. Start thinking of it as clouds of it. As weather systems of hot metal moving through the air, looking for bodies to cut into. The Marine who's down is screaming, not the high, panicked scream of someone in shock, but a deep, sustained wail of pain. He's hit in the leg. His leg is wrong. The angle is wrong. but he's trying to crawl forward anyway, trying to drag himself up the beach, trying to get away from the waterline where the next waves of Marines are coming in. Jacklyn is running past him. He knows he should stop. He knows that you're supposed to help the wounded. But Sergeant Collins is shouting something, waving them forward, and Jacklyn knows that stopping means death. It's not just for him, for the entire squad. So he runs past the screaming Marine and he hates himself for it. He files that moment away in some place in his brain where all the other moments like this are going to pile up until they break him or make him or turn him into something entirely different. The beach rises slightly. Ow. The first obstacle. There are concrete tetrahedrons placed by the Japanese in tight tank obstacles designed to slow down anything approaching the island. They're only about 3 feet tall, but they break up the beach, provide some cover, and create a choke point where the Marines bunch up, which is exactly what the Japanese want. A machine gun opens up from somewhere on the left. Jacklyn can't see where it's coming from. The smoke and dust from the bombardment is so thick that visibility is maybe 50 feet, maybe less. But he can hear the distinctive rip-rip of a Nambu machine gun firing about 500 rounds a minute, and he can see the impacts in the sand 20 feet ahead of him. 3 Marines go down. One of them doesn't move again. "Get down," Collins is screaming. "Spread out. Use the obstacles." The squad scatters. Jacklyn dives behind one of the concrete tetrahedrons, his rifle still clutched in his hands. Danny Thomas is next to him, breathing hard. They're both gasping for air, not from exertion, exactly, but from the shock of it. The reality of it. This is not training. This is not a drill. This is the moment when you realize that people are actually trying to kill you, and they're not going to stop trying until you stop them or you stop existing. "Where's it coming from?" Danny gasps. Jacklyn doesn't answer because he doesn't know. He's trying to look up the beach, trying to figure out the geography, trying to understand where the Japanese positions are, but the smoke is too thick, the ground is too broken. And then, as if the clouds are parting, he sees it a muzzle flash from a position maybe 200 yards up the beach, near the base of what looks like a blockhouse. Concrete, narrow firing ports. "A killing machine designed specifically for this moment," there Jacklyn says, pointing. But before he can say anything else, before he can even think about what they're supposed to do about a machine gun nest 200 yards away when they're pinned down, the naval bombardment shifts. The Navy has been coordinating with the landing forces, and someone has decided that it's time to shift the artillery further inland. The massive roar of the bombardment, which has become almost like silence because you get used to it, suddenly intensifies. A 5-inch shell from a destroyer lands maybe 150 yards up the beach. The explosion is apocalyptic. Black sand geysers into the air. Rocks that weigh hundreds of pounds are tossed like pebbles. When the dust clears, the blockhouse is gone. Just gone. There's a crater where it was, and the machine gun fire stops. "Come on." Collins is up and moving. Move, move, move. The squad surges forward. They run through the cleared area, stepping over bodies, some of them Marines, some of them Japanese, some of them just parts that used to be both. The smell is starting to set in now. Burned flesh. Burned cordite. The specific acrid smell of explosives. And underneath it all, already, the smell of death. They make it maybe 200 yards inland before the next obstacle. A ridge of rock, the volcanic geology of the island creating natural barriers. Behind it, there's more cover. And beyond that, inland, the real terrain of Iwo Jima begins. The ground rises. The volcanic hills start to show themselves. It's far and somewhere in those hills, in tunnels and fortified positions that the bombardment hasn't touched, are 20,000 Japanese soldiers who are now starting to get serious about defending their island. Jacklyn slides into the relative cover behind the ridge. For the first time since the ramp dropped, he has a moment to breathe. Just a moment. His heart is hammering so hard that he thinks it might break his ribs. His hands are shaking so much that he's not sure he could shoot anything if he had to. "Report," Collins says to the Marines in his immediate vicinity. "It's a roll call. It's a way of figuring out who's still alive." "Here," says Corporal Williams. "Here," says Private Kowalski. "Here," says Danny Thomas, his Georgia drawl somehow even more pronounced now, as if fear has taken the rest of his accent away and left only this core element. Jacklyn forces himself to speak. "Here, Sergeant." One after another the names come. Not all of them. Private Mitchell is down, hit in the shoulder as they were running. They left him with the corpsman. Private Jackson didn't make it off the beach. No one saw what happened to him, but he's gone. And that's just the first 10 minutes. That's just one squad. On this beach, on this island, across all 5 divisions of Marines, this is happening 10,000 times over.
Ow.
10,000 small tragedies. 10,000 moments of men realizing that the training, the preparation, the confidence, none of it matters when someone is actually shooting at you with the intent to kill. Collins looks at Jacklyn, really looks at him, and Jacklyn sees something in the sergeant's eyes that he wasn't expecting to seed out. Not doubt in the mission, not doubt in the plan, but doubt about whether these men, these kids, these 17-year-olds and 19-year-olds and 22-year-olds are going to survive what's coming next. The Japanese have been planning this for months. They know that Iwo Jima is indefensible. They know that eventually the Americans will take the island. But they also know that every day they hold out, every day they force the Americans to fight for this volcanic rock, is a day that the Americans are not bombing Tokyo. It's a day that the American fleet is not moving closer to Japan proper. So, they've built something that shouldn't be buildable on a 5x2 island. They've built a fortress.
Oh.
There are 18 kilometers of tunnels underneath Iwo Jima. 18 kilometers.
Oh.
That's 11 miles of interconnected caves and passages and chambers where Japanese soldiers wait in the darkness. The bombardment from the Navy 3 days of intensive naval gunfire has damaged some of these positions, but the deeper tunnels, the more secure positions, the ones that were designed with the understanding that they would have to withstand something exactly like this bombardment, those are intact, those are waiting. The Marines don't know this yet, not the details. They know there will be tunnels. They've been briefed that the island is heavily fortified, but the scale of it, the incomprehensible scale of this underground fortress is something they're going to discover yard by yard, hour by hour, day by day. They're going to discover it by running into machine gun fire that seems to come from nowhere. They're going to discover it by throwing grenades into cave openings and having Japanese grenades come rolling back out. They're going to discover it by watching men next to them explode into pieces when a grenade goes off.
But right now, at this moment, at 9:27 a.m. on February 19th, 1945, Jacklyn Lucas and his squad are moving inland. They're moving toward higher ground because that's what the officers are directing them to do. They're moving toward the volcanic ridges and the rough terrain because that's where the Japanese positions are supposed to be. And Sergeant Collins is making a decision that he's going to have to live with for the rest of his life. He's going to split the squad. He's going to send half of them, including Jacklyn, toward one of the ridges where there's been sporadic machine gun fire. And he's going to do this because that's what the lieutenant told him to do. That's the chain of command. That's how the Marine Corps works. Lucas Thomas Williams Kowalski, Collins says, "You're with me. We're going to clear that ridge. The rest of you, set up a defensive position here and keep watch on the beach. Anyone tries to come up behind us, you hold them. It's not a complicated plan. It's barely a plan at all. But then, plans tend to fall apart the moment contact is made with the enemy. And these 4 Marines, a sergeant, a 17-year-old private, a private from Georgia, and 2 corporals, they're about to make contact. They move forward in a low crouch. The black sand is still pulling at their boots. Their rifles are held high. Their eyes are sweeping left and right, looking for any sign of movement, any indication of enemy positions. The ridge is maybe 30 yards away. It doesn't sound far, but 30 yards is an eternity in a firefight. 20 yards, 15 yards, 10 yards. A grenade comes flying over the ridge, just comes spinning through the air. Jacklyn sees it first, this small dark object. That's moving too fast, and he registers what it is before his brain can quite process the implications. A grenade. A Japanese grenade. One of those Type 97 grenades that explodes if you throw them hard enough, which the Japanese always do. Grenade. He's screaming, and then he's moving, throwing himself to the side, and the other Marines are moving too. And the explosion. The world goes white, then black, then a ringing sound that's so loud it seems to come from inside your skull. Jacklyn's on his back. His rifle is in his hands, but he's not sure how it got there. His ears are bleeding, or at least they're ringing so badly that it feels like they're bleeding. He can't hear anything except this high-pitched whine, but he can see. He can see Corporal Williams on the ground. Corporal Williams is not moving. There's blood spreading underneath him in a dark stain across the black sand. Jacklyn tries to get up. His body doesn't want to obey. His nervous system is still processing the shock. And then the Japanese are over the ridge. 3 of them, just 3. Suddenly they're visible, coming toward the prone Marines with their bayonets fixed, their uniforms torn from the bombardment, their eyes wild with the particular fury that comes from 3 days of having bombs dropped on your head. Collins is up. His rifle is up. He fires 3 times, and the lead Japanese soldier goes down. But the other 2 keep coming. They're running down the ridge toward the Marines. And everything is moving very fast now, faster than Jacklyn's brain can process. And he's trying to get his rifle oriented, trying to get a sight picture. But the recoil from Collins' shots is still echoing in his ears, and his vision is swimming from the concussion. Danny Thomas is beside him. Danny's on his knee, and his rifle is aimed, and he fires once. The second Japanese soldier is hit, staggered, but keeps coming. So Danny fires again and again, and the soldier goes down. The third one is almost to them. The bayonet is pointed at Jacklyn's chest. Jacklyn fires. He doesn't even remember raising the rifle. He doesn't remember aiming. His body just did it, and his finger just pulled the trigger, and the Japanese soldier stops. Just stops. His momentum carries him forward a few more steps, and then his legs give out and he collapses. Silence. Not real silence. The artillery is still roaring overhead. The sounds of combat are still happening all around them on the island, but the silence between their squad and the ridge. The silence that comes when the immediate threat is gone. Collins is up, running toward the ridge, his rifle ready. He's motioning for them to follow. They follow. Over the ridge, they find a Japanese defensive position. A concrete bunker with firing ports, machine gun emplacements. At least a dozen Japanese soldiers, but they're not going to be a problem anymore because the naval bombardment caught this position. And the concrete has caved in, and the soldiers, the ones who didn't run, they're buried under tons of rock. Jacklyn Lucas has just killed a man. He's 17 years old, and he's just ended someone's life with a bullet. And the strange thing is that he doesn't feel anything about it. No remorse, no triumph. Just a kind of numbness. A kind of shock that his body is still moving, still following orders, still functioning as a Marine, even though something fundamental has broken inside him. The afternoon of February 19th becomes a blur of movement and contact, and the particular kind of exhaustion that comes from running on adrenaline and fear. Time stops meaning anything. There's no afternoon. There's no evening. There's only the next moment, and the moment after that, and the moment after that. Jacklyn Lucas moves through this timeline like a man in a dream, except the dream has teeth and claws and the ability to end your life with a single mistake. Collins keeps them moving inland. The initial assault has pushed maybe a quarter mile onto the island, and the Marines are consolidating positions, establishing a defensive line, trying to figure out where the main Japanese defenses actually are. Because the thing about Iwo Jima is that it looks empty. The bombardment has leveled the surface of the island. Buildings that were there 3 days ago are just rubble now. Trees are gone. Everything that was living is either dead or hidden. So the Marines move forward, expecting to see the enemy, expecting to see fortifications, and instead they see a landscape that looks like the moon. Except the moon is fighting back. Machine gun fire comes from a position they can't identify. It's coming from below ground somewhere, from one of the tunnels that honeycomb the island. The bullets impact the black sand, sending up geysers of the fine volcanic material. The Marines dive for cover behind rocks, behind the remnants of buildings, behind anything that might provide some protection. Jacklyn finds himself behind the twisted metal frame of what used to be a Japanese truck. The metal is hot enough that it burns his arm when he leans against it from the bombardment. Everything on this island is hot. Everything smells like cordite and burned metal and death. Where's it coming from? Collins is shouting, but Jacklyn can barely hear him. His ears are still ringing from the grenades. Everything sounds like it's being filtered through water. There, Williams is pointing. Cave entrance. Maybe 50 yards, bearing north-northeast. 50 yards. That distance that sounds short until you have to cross it under machine gun fire. 50 yards that will take maybe 10 seconds to cross at a full run. 10 seconds where a machine gunner can fire 500 rounds. The math is not in their favor, but Collins is a sergeant. He's made this calculation 1,000 times in his head. He knows the odds. And he knows that if they don't take out that machine gun position, more Marines are going to die. So he makes a command decision that will either get his men killed or save their lives. There's no middle ground. Lucas and Thomas, he says, you're going to move to the right. I want you to flank that position. Draw fire if you have to, but I want you to get close enough to throw grenades into that cave. Williams, Kowalski, you're with me. We're going to lay down suppressive fire. It's a simple plan, too simple. But it's the kind of plan that works in situations like this, because the Japanese are expecting you to do something more complicated. They're expecting you to try to rush them directly. They're not expecting flanking movements, because flanking movements require coordination and timing and the kind of calm that combat tends to destroy. Jacklyn and Danny move to the right, staying low, using the terrain to mask their approach. The machine gun fire continues. It's focused on Collins' position now, trying to keep his head down, trying to prevent him from providing covering fire. The tactics are working. The noise is terrifying. The sound of rounds impacting the rock near Collins' position. That distinctive whack of a bullet hitting stone is constant. They're 20 yards from the cave entrance now. 20 yards sounds closer than it is. They're still covered by the terrain, still masked by the rubble and the broken landscape. But they're going to have to expose themselves to get closer. They're going to have to move across open ground. Danny looks at Jacklyn. Jacklyn looks at Danny. They don't need to say anything. They both know what's about to happen. Collins fires 3 shots a signal. The suppressive fire is about to begin. The sound of rifle fire erupts. Collins and Williams and Kowalski are all shooting now, sending rounds toward the cave entrance, trying to suppress the Japanese position, trying to keep the machine gunner from turning around to face the flanking threat. And in that moment, in the space between shots, Jacklyn and Danny move. They run. They run across the open ground, their boots pounding on the black sand, their rifles held high. And Jacklyn's brain is screaming at him that this is wrong, that he's going to die, that no one could possibly survive this. But his body keeps moving. His legs keep pumping. His lungs keep working. 15 yards to the cave entrance. 10 yards. 5 yards. Jacklyn throws the first grenade. He pulls the pin, lets the spoon fly, counts to 3. You count to 3, because if you count to 4, the Japanese sometimes pick it up and throw it back, and then he's throwing it into the darkness of the cave. Danny throws the second grenade right behind it. The explosions come almost immediately. 2 grenades detonating in a confined space. The cave entrance shudders. Dust and smoke come pouring out. Rocks fall from the ceiling. And the machine gun fire stops. Just stops. No sound. No noise. Just the echo of the grenades dying away. Collins' voice. Hold position. They hold. Jacklyn and Danny are flat on the ground, maybe 10 yards from the cave entrance, their rifles ready, waiting to see if anything moves in that darkness. Nothing moves. The cave has swallowed the grenades and the explosions, and if there was anything alive in there, it's not anymore. But that's not how Iwo Jima works. The cave is one position. But there are 18 kilometers of tunnels. This cave is connected to other caves. The Japanese soldiers who are manning this position have already retreated deeper to the next prepared position, to the next choke point in this underground fortress. The grenades killed maybe 3 or 4 of them, but the machine gun is gone, and the immediate threat is neutralized. Collins moves forward. He's checking the position, confirming what they've already figured out, that it's empty now, that the immediate danger has passed. He signals them to pull back. They regroup. 4 Marines, sweating, shaking, alive. Barely. One of them, Kowalski, has a graze wound on his upper arm. A bullet grazed him while he was providing suppressive fire, and he didn't even notice until Collins pointed out the blood. "Good work," Collins says. And that's it. That's the only acknowledgement that they just did something extraordinary. That they just turned the tide on a machine gun position that could have killed them all. We keep moving. The lieutenant wants us to establish a defensive perimeter before dark. There's another ridge system about a quarter mile that way. We're going to move to it, secure it, and dig in for the night. A quarter mile. On a normal day, a quarter mile is nothing. It's a walk. But on Iwo Jima, on a day where you've already been in contact with the enemy 6 times, where you've watched other Marines die, where every single moment of daylight brings another opportunity for someone to try to kill you, a quarter mile is an eternity. They move forward. The afternoon light is starting to change. It's maybe 3 p.m. now, though time has become completely meaningless. They've been awake since before dawn. They've been operating on pure adrenaline and fear for nearly 6 hours. The Marines' bodies are starting to rebel. Their legs are heavy. Their eyes are burning from the smoke and the salt air. Their throats are parched. Water is going to be a critical resource on this island, and they've already drunk most of what they brought. But the fighting continues. As they move inland toward the ridge system that Collins mentioned, they encounter more Japanese positions. A sniper fires from somewhere they can't identify, and one of the Marines from the squad behind them goes down with a bullet through the neck. He's dead before he hits the ground. A mortar position opens up on them from somewhere in the interior, and they have to take cover again, pressing themselves against rocks, trying to become smaller, trying to make themselves less of a target. Jacklyn is starting to understand something about combat that they don't teach you in training. Combat is not a tactical puzzle. Combat is not something you win by making the right decision. Combat is something you win by being the person who doesn't die. It's luck mixed with preparation, mixed with a particular kind of calm that some men have and others don't. And Jacklyn is starting to realize that he has some of that calm. He doesn't know where it comes from. He doesn't know if it's because he's 17 and his brain hasn't fully developed the capacity to understand how likely death is, or if it's something deeper. But he has it. He sees things that other Marines miss. When a Japanese soldier pokes his head out of a cave entrance 50 yards away, Jacklyn is the one who sees him. When a machine gun position is being repositioned, Jacklyn is the one who hears the movement. It's like his senses have suddenly calibrated themselves to the specific frequencies of death. He's becoming a weapon, and weapons don't think about what they're aiming at. They just aim. By the time they reach the ridge system at 4:30 p.m., Jacklyn has been directly responsible for the deaths of at least 5 more Japanese soldiers. He's lost count. The grenades, the rifle fire, the moments of seeing an enemy position and communicating it to Collins, it all blurs together. He's shot at mines, at enemies that are 50 yards away, at enemies that are close enough to touch. He's thrown grenades into caves. He's watched other Marines die. And he's starting to understand that he might actually survive this. The ridge is a defensible position. It's higher than the surrounding terrain. It has natural cover from the rock formations. And it provides a view of the approaches. Anyone coming up the ridge will have to expose themselves for at least 50 yards before they reach the Marines' position. It's good ground. It's the kind of ground that might actually keep them alive through the night. Collins positions the Marines strategically. Jacklyn and Danny are set up on the left flank, behind a natural rock outcropping that provides perfect cover and a firing lane that overlooks the main approach. Williams and Kowalski are on the right. Collins establishes a command post in the center where he can see both flanks. "We've got roughly 2 hours of good light left," Collins says, and his voice is different now. Harder, more certain. He's seen combat before. He's one of the few in the squad with experience from previous islands, and he's settling into the particular kind of patience that comes with knowing you're going to survive another night. "I want 2-man watches. 1 hour on, 1 hour off. Nobody sleeps. You see movement, you report it immediately. You do not fire unless fired upon or unless the target is direct and immediate. We're low on ammunition, and there's no resupply coming until tomorrow, so we conserve." The watches are established. Jacklyn and Danny take the first watch. They sit on top of their ridge, watching the approaches, watching the black sand and the broken terrain and the occasional movement that might be wind or might be enemy activity. Danny lights a cigarette, just pulls one out, lights it with a match from his pack, and smokes it like he's not on an island that's actively trying to kill him. Jacklyn finds this fascinating. He finds it calming. They sit in silence, watching and smoking, and the sun starts to move toward the horizon. "I killed someone today," Jacklyn says. He's not sure why he's saying it. Maybe because Danny is the only other person who's actually been alongside him for the killing. Maybe because he needs to hear himself say it out loud. "Yeah," Danny says. "So did I?" "Does it feel weird?" Danny takes a long drag on the cigarette. He considers the question. The sun is turning the sky orange and purple, and for a moment the island almost looks beautiful. Almost looks like a place where people could live in peace. "It feels like we did what we were trained to do," Danny finally says. "It feels like we survived. Everything else is secondary to survival, I think. You can worry about what it means later. Right now, it means we're not dead." The watch continues. Hours pass, the sun goes down. The sky goes from purple to black, and Iwo Jima becomes a different island in the darkness. It becomes a place where you can't see the enemy coming. It becomes a place where death could be waiting just beyond the edge of visibility. And it becomes a place where the Marines have to trust in their senses and their training, and the men sitting next to them. Nothing happens, no attacks, no contact. Just the night sounds of the island, the wind, the distant sounds of other Marines digging in, the occasional crack of a rifle as someone shoots at a perceived movement, but nothing comes at them. Nothing threatens their position. When Kowalski and Williams take over the watch, Jacklyn and Danny try to sleep, but sleep doesn't come. They sit with their backs against the rock, their rifles across their laps, and they wait for morning. Jacklyn closes his eyes, but he doesn't sleep. He thinks about his mother in North Carolina. He thinks about the letter he sent to his girlfriend that got him court-martialed. He thinks about the fact that he's still alive, and that fact seems impossible. He's killed people, real people, people who had mothers and girlfriends and futures that will never happen now because of his trigger finger. And the worst part is that he doesn't feel guilty. He doesn't feel remorse. He just feels tired, so very tired, and grateful to be alive, to feel anything at all. February 20th, 1945, 6:15 a.m., Iwo Jima, Day 2. Jacklyn Lucas wakes without remembering falling asleep. His eyes just open, and suddenly it's morning. The sky is gray-blue, that particular color that comes in the hour before true dawn. Around him, the other Marines are already stirring. Nobody slept. Everyone's eyes are open, red-rimmed, hollow with the kind of exhaustion that comes from adrenaline and fear, and the constant vigilance required to stay alive on an island where death is patient and thorough. Collins is already moving. He's checking the perimeter, walking from position to position, assessing the night's damage. There is none. They made it through their first night. In another few hours, thousands of other Marines will say the same thing, and some of them will be lying because they died in the darkness and nobody noticed until dawn counted them. But Collins' squad made it. All 5 of them. Against odds that should have killed at least 3 of them. Eat, Collins says, and it's not a suggestion. He's handing out rations K-rations, the compressed meal packets that taste like cardboard mixed with salt and despair. Jacklyn eats because he knows he has to. His body needs fuel. His mind is already starting to fragment from exhaustion and shock, and fuel is the only thing that might hold it together. The radio crackles. It's Collins' platoon leader, Lieutenant Morrison. The voice comes through tinny and distorted, but the message is clear. All squad leaders, this is Able 1. We're moving out in 30 minutes. Objective is to establish forward positions along the ridge system. Division wants Mount Surabaki secured by end of day. All units maintain contact and report enemy positions. Out, Mount Suribashi, that dormant volcano that rises 546 feet above the beach. In the chaos of yesterday, in the shock of the landing and the first contact, Jacklyn hadn't really focused on the geography. But now, looking south toward the mountain, he understands what it means. Every Japanese position on this island will have observers on that mountain. Every Marine position is visible from that mountain. Control of Mount Suribashi means control of the entire island. That's impossible, Kowalski says. He's looking at the mountain, calculating the distance, calculating the enemy positions that must exist on it. There's no way we move from here to there in a day. Not with opposition. Not with the tunnels. Collins doesn't disagree. He just says, that's the order. We follow orders. We move when they tell us to move, and we secure what they tell us to secure. Whether it's impossible is not our concern. It's a Marine Corps' truth, but it's also a lie. It is their concern. It will become their concern. Because Iwo Jima is not about achieving the impossible. Iwo Jima is about taking losses so severe that the survivors start to question whether survival is even worth the price. They move out at 6:47 a.m. The beach is now crowded with landing craft, with supplies, with the material apparatus of an amphibious assault that's only just begun. Yesterday morning, Jacklyn watched the island from a transport ship. Now he's part of an invasion force that's becoming real, becoming entrenched, becoming something that can't be stopped unless the Japanese can push them back into the sea. But the Japanese can't push them back. The Japanese can only make the Marines pay for every inch of island they take. And the price, it turns out, is going to be extraordinarily high. Collins' squad moves with a larger unit, now a platoon of maybe 40 Marines. They're moving toward the ridge systems that form the interior geography of the island. Between the beach and those ridges is ground that should be open, that should be defensive, but it's not. It's pocked with cave entrances, hidden pillboxes, underground positions that the bombardment didn't touch. They've been moving for maybe 15 minutes when the first ambush happens. A Japanese position that they somehow missed, or that was missed by the units ahead of them, opens up with machine gun fire. The Marines scatter. Jacklyn finds himself behind a piece of corrugated metal that's twisted into a shape that provides almost no cover, but it's something. Danny is next to him. How many times is this going to happen today? As many as it takes, Jacklyn says, and he's surprised by how steady his voice is. Yesterday, he was 17 years old and scared. Today, he's 18 hours older and scared, but the fear has become familiar. It's become something he can function through. The suppressive fire from the Marines ahead starts to pin down the Japanese position. Collins signals the squad forward. They move in a crouch, weapons ready, moving toward the machine gun nest that's trying to kill them. By now, the pattern is familiar. Find the position. Flank it. Throw grenades. Move on. The Japanese die. or they retreat deeper into the tunnels. Either way, the Marines keep moving forward, but the cost is mounting. By the time they reach the ridge system at 10:30 a.m., they've lost 2 more Marines to sniper fire. One of them, a private named Morrison, no relation to the lieutenant, is hit in the stomach. He dies slowly, bleeding out in the black sand, calling for his mother in a voice that sounds nothing like a grown man should sound. Jacklyn watches this happen. He watches the Marines around Morrison try to stop the bleeding, try to apply first aid, try to save him. And he watches as the effort fails. Morrison stops breathing at 11:15 a.m. A corpsman checks for a pulse, shakes his head. They move on. The ridge system is defensible, and the Marines dig in. They're going to hold this position, while the units ahead of them continue to push toward Mount Suribachi. The word comes through the radio that elements of the 28th Regiment have already begun the assault on the mountain. By evening, flags will be flying on the summit. Flags, as if fabric planted on a mountain changes anything. As if the Marines who died to get there will care about the flags. Jacklyn doesn't think about this. He doesn't think about much of anything anymore. He digs a foxhole. He fills sandbags. He watches the perimeter. He waits for the next attack. And the next attack comes. 1:47 p.m. Japanese counterattack from the tunnels beneath the ridge. The ground shakes. Not from artillery, that's above them, happening miles away, but from explosions beneath the ground. Japanese soldiers are using the tunnel system to move beneath the Marines' position, trying to attack from underneath, trying to create chaos and confusion. Jacklyn feels it more than sees it. The ground literally trembles. Rocks fall from the ceiling of what used to be a natural cave formation. And suddenly, 20 yards away, the ground opens up and Japanese soldiers are coming out of the earth itself. Rifles crack. Grenades explode. The firefight is close quarters, brutal, the kind of fighting where you don't have time to aim. You just point your weapon and pull the trigger. You throw grenades and hope they detonate before they can be thrown back. Collins is shouting something. Jacklyn can't hear what it is. His ears are ringing again. There's blood on his face. He's not sure if it's his blood or someone else's. He fires his rifle. He counts the shots because ammunition is critical. 1 shot. 2 shots. He's aiming at a Japanese soldier who's maybe 20 feet away. The soldier is aiming back. They're locked in this moment, this terrible moment where one person's aim is better than the other person's aim. Jacklyn's aim is better. The Japanese soldier goes down, but 3 more are coming up out of the tunnel entrance. Jacklyn fires again. One of them goes down. The other 2 keep coming. Danny is beside him, firing. Williams is firing from another position. The sound is apocalyptic. The smell is overwhelming cordite, blood, the burnt metal smell of explosions in a confined space. And then, as suddenly as it started, it ends. The Japanese soldiers who made it out of the tunnel are either dead or retreating back down into the darkness. The Marines hold their fire, waiting to see if there are more. There aren't. Collins does a quick count. Everyone's still breathing. 2 Marines have wounds. Williams is bleeding from a shrapnel cut on his upper arm, and Kowalski has taken a graze wound to the ribs. But they're functional. They're alive. Did we get them all? Jacklyn asks. He's not sure why he's asking. Of course they didn't get them all. There are miles of tunnel. There are thousands of Japanese soldiers in those tunnels. This attack was just one probe, one attempt to disrupt the Marine positions. There will be more. We got the ones who came up, Collins says. The rest are still down there, and they're going to try again. They always try again. 4:30 p.m., late afternoon on Iwo Jima. The radio brings news. Mount Suribachi has been secured. American flags are flying on the summit. The photograph will become iconic. It will define this battle. It will show the world that America is winning, that the Marines are advancing, that Japan's days are numbered. But it doesn't feel like winning. It feels like holding on. The Marines have suffered nearly 3,000 casualties in less than 36 hours. They've taken maybe a quarter of the island. There are still 18 days of fighting ahead of them. 18 days of this. And the word secured is a military term that means we're holding it for now, but we don't know for how long. Jacklyn sits on the ridge as the sun starts to move toward the horizon. He's cleaning his rifle. The mechanism is clogged with volcanic sand. Everything on this island gets clogged with sand. Your rifle, your eyes, your ears, your mind. The volcanic sand infiltrates everything and makes everything harder to work with. He pulls the bolt back. He runs a cleaning rod through the barrel. He checks the firing mechanism. Everything is functional. The rifle is functional. And therefore Jacklyn Lucas is functional. A man is only as functional as his weapon. Danny sits next to him. Danny's not talking much anymore. None of them are. Words have become less important. Movement has become everything. The night is coming, and they'll take another watch. And if they survive the night, morning will come, and they'll move forward again. Toward Mount Suribachi, toward the interior of the island, toward the central positions where the main Japanese forces are dug in. My father told me something, Danny says, and his voice is quieter than it was yesterday. Quieter and older. He told me that war changes you, not in the way you think, not like you become brave or tough. He said war shows you what you already are, and that's the hardest part, seeing yourself clearly for the first time. Jacklyn doesn't respond right away. He finishes cleaning his rifle. He loads a fresh magazine. He sets the rifle across his lap. "What do you think you are?" he finally asks. Danny looks out toward the mountain, toward the flag, toward the terrain that's going to kill more of them tomorrow. "I think I'm the kind of person who's good at killing people when he has to," Danny says. "And that's something I'm going to have to live with for a very long time." The sun goes down. The second night on Iwo Jima begins. And Jacklyn Lucas, 17 years old, already responsible for the deaths of at least a dozen enemy soldiers, already containing more trauma than most men experience in a lifetime, closes his eyes and waits for morning. He doesn't know what's coming next. He doesn't know that in 7 more days, his life is going to change in a way that will define every moment that comes after. He doesn't know that he's going to do something extraordinary. He just knows that he has to survive until tomorrow. And then the next day. And then the next. The island isn't done with him yet. The island is just getting started.